Coming to you today virtually with Joe M. Turner from Turner Magic. And we're going to talk about the magic show that's going to be live streamed to you on October 25th. So we're going to find out a little bit about Joe today and talk about that. So Joe, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with how you got introduced or started in magic. I'd love to hear your story.
Oh, well, I think most adults or many adults have gone through a phase when they were a kid where they were interested in magic for some reason. Maybe they got a magic kit for Christmas or magic trick in a box of cereal or something like that. I got a magic kit for Christmas when I was 5 and was, all interested in the little plastic goodies inside the kit and making, doing the magic tricks. And then I also had a book that I got when I was very young. And so I was interested in magic at a young age. I used to watch Doug Henning on television and David Copperfield and stuff. And then I kind of put it aside in junior high and high school. I didn't do it quite as much. And a little bit in college.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
not really performing magic. I was doing a lot of theater, well, mostly musical theater, but some drama as well. And came back to magic in my late 20s, doing magic for kids at the church that I was attending at the time. That's just, in the hallway or helping out with the children's church or something. And it sort of came back into my life a little bit at that point and took over really from that point forward. So magic kit when I was 5, a little bit when I was 10, 11, 12, and then it really just sort of latched on tight in my late 20s.
That's really interesting. So what was the trigger that kind of pushed it over the edge when you were in your late 20s? What kind of made you really go in that direction?
Well, it just had a way of sort of taking over my life. I started doing magic for fun and like I said, people at church. And, once I did it I was in the children's church and my magic sort of got the attention of the group that I was with and made it easier for me to manage that situation. I said, well, this is a secret weapon. So I started just investigating it. And the next time my parents came to visit, I asked them to bring that footlocker full of old magic props that I had from when I was a kid. And then later on, I found some magic clubs in the city of Atlanta. We have 2 large magic clubs. I got sort of involved with them and started going to meetings and learning new things. And then someone invited me to perform magic at a corporate event, which I had never really, when I was growing up, I read about magic, but to me, magic was either kids' birthday parties or maybe somebody you saw at school or something.
Yeah.
Or it was Las Vegas and, big tricks on the stage and girls getting in the box and all of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a whole other, there was a large spectrum in between of performance opportunities and venues. And so when I started doing magic at corporate events, cocktail parties and receptions and things like that, I started thinking, well, I at corporate banquets and meetings and trade show exhibits, and I didn't know anything about all of that. And so as I realized that these options were available, it became more appealing, and I started doing magic part-time in corporate settings.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. Great. So Joe, tell us how long you've been doing corporate magic.
Oh gosh, let's see. This is October of 2020, so this month makes 20 years full time.
That's great. Wow.
So
Good for you.
2 decades.
That's great. Now, I know from our conversations that COVID-19 drastically affected your business.
Oh.
So talk about how that's impacted you.
Well, it has affected everybody's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly this year has been a challenge. And I would say meetings and events, which is the industry where I am, sort of parallel with hospitality, but meetings and events and live conferences mostly canceled. So COVID affected me the first time this year. It was on January 29th when I was getting on a plane to go to the South Pacific. And actually I was going to Guam to get on a cruise ship. and I had to wear a mask, or I chose to wear a mask on the plane. It wasn't mandatory at the time. And so I was performing on a ship in the South China Sea in February as this started to become a pandemic, a global issue.
Oh,
And
wow.
ports started closing around me while I was at sea,
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and we had nowhere to go. We were at sea for 12 days with no stops. And finally, we stopped in Singapore, and I got on a plane and came home. And I still had some corporate events left to go, a conference in Atlanta in late February, which it was fine. But by the mid-March, everything I'd seen happening over there was happening over here. And so my calendar pretty much wiped itself out by the end of March. The rest of the year had essentially disappeared. So that is when during that time, I'd gone to my first Zoom meeting, and I started to see that this was a viable real-time interaction
Yes.
with people. I remember early days of teleconferencing or video calls and early Skype, early messaging systems where the video was choppy and wasn't really suitable for live performance. But at this point, it was fine. Most people had bandwidth up to the challenge of live video.
Hmm.
So I started immediately developing a show or a way to perform and present using virtual teleconferencing, uh, Zoom particularly, as a way to continue doing what I do. And so that's how I decided to launch a virtual show, which I did my first virtual show on April the 3rd.
Okay. So it took you a couple of months to really refine that and get it to where it was production
Well, I would say a couple of
ready.
weeks.
A couple weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a really fast pivot.
Mid-March is when I realized this isn't going to be done by the end of the month,
Sure.
right? And so I said, we gotta come up with something. And I started seeing Zoom and some meetings on Zoom. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to figure out a way to use Zoom to perform.
Yeah. And were corporations uh, ready to have you come on with that, or did it take a little while for them to kind of get on board with the idea?
The second of those stories is one. I think it took everyone some time to come to grips
Yeah.
with this mode of interacting with each other. And we're all pretty comfortable with it. I think now most of us know how to navigate either Zoom or Facebook or Google Meet or Teams or WebEx or something. Our companies have it. We have something at home, and this isn't nearly as unusual as it was last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now that we all have some understanding of how this model works, then it's becoming more popular. But no, companies were not just ringing my bell immediately saying, oh, by the way, can you do a Zoom show? But after I delivered my first Zoom show in April, I got a corporate inquiry within a day of doing that first show. And
Okay.
someone who saw it and said, we need to do this for our company. Our employees need a morale boost. And
Yeah.
this is something interesting that we can do online in addition to the normal meetings that we're having.
Right. And so have things picked up now?
Yeah. Oh,
Companies
I've
coming
booked
to you?
corporate work into next year,
Oh,
virtual corporate work. I'm continuing to do my own private shows. And I'm excited to do the show that we're doing together. But yeah, absolutely. It started to pick up. Now, some live events have started up again too, in different circumstances and with distancing and different kinds of precautions and all of that. But
hmm.
I don't anticipate any large in-person conferences.
Right.
Uh, my normal clientele being back to that mode of operation before next summer.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad things have picked up for you. I know that was the big struggle when everything dropped off.
Well, it's been the same for everyone, and we've all had to learn to say, well, this is a new environment technically. This is a new environment socially. This is a new environment that we're living in and dealing with. And how are we gonna find ways to do what we do or deliver value to our clients under these different kinds of constraints.
Yeah.
And so I'm far from the only person who has had to figure out what we're doing differently, right? All of our teachers and our
Yeah.
medical professionals and everybody's learning to explore this new territory.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate that I've been able to come up with some creative new things that I've done. I've done my memory seminar on Zoom. I've done piano vocal entertainment on Zoom that I had never tried to do virtually before. I was the expert witness in a hearing yesterday using magic and apply. We all have to apply the resources and skills that we have and try to figure new ways to deliver value to other people using what we have. And this is one of the things we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell us where you've performed. I know you've done a couple of things that are pretty exciting. So tell us some of the places that you've performed.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, we said I had 20 years to pull from. So I've done everything from local TV to different national network events, CNN, headline news. I was on that early on. I had a clip shown on Good Morning America, Nightline. I was on CNN Chile. I was on Good Morning Latvia, which is
Wow.
fun. Yeah, so you've made it when you're on Good
You're-
Morning Latvia. A couple years ago, I was in Bulgaria and I did a show that was it was a network television special in the country of Bulgaria. It was on BNT2, one of their channels. And so I had a spot on a network television special there. I've done theaters, the Magic Castle in Los Angeles and Hollywood. I've done Monday Night Magic in New York, the Chicago Magic Lounge, House of Cards in Nashville. All Nashville people, I've done House of Cards. I've done the Magic Circle in London and the London Palladium.
Wow, so you're an international star.
Australia, South Africa, Bangkok, lots of different places.
Wow,
It's a wild ride, learn a few card tricks and see the world.
that's great. All right, so tell us, who is your ideal client? Who do you love to work with?
Oh, well, it kind of varies depending on the style of performance that I'm being asked to do, because I do magic strictly for entertainment, and I do magic in more of a teaching and speaking mode. And I also have my courses that I train on. So there's different kinds of clientele for the different performance offerings that I have.
Okay.
As an entertainer, I love private events. I love corporate events, just church events, banquets, and special, outreach events or things like that. So that can be great fun. I think my favorite thing to do is to go to a company or an association or some group and use magic to talk to them about what does it mean to create amazing experiences for an audience, and how those lessons from my life in business, my life in the theater, my life in magic, how those principles that I can share with them affect the way they can do business for their own customers or clients, or the experiences that they deliver to their own audiences, employees, students, donors, members. And I really feel like that's where I can deliver value. So I've performed for lots of companies you would associate with Atlanta, Home Depot and Delta and CNN. But I've done work for Uber. I've done work for IHG, hotels, other media companies, technology groups, software companies of note. And so my ideal client varies a little bit based on what I'm being asked to do. But generally, it's a corporate clientele. I love it when a conference, a 2 or 3 or 4 day conference is going to ask me to speak, maybe be the keynote, opener, or closer.
Mm-hmm.
They'll also hire me to entertain at their opening night cocktail party, and then speak later in the conference, and then maybe do my memory seminar as a breakout session. So I really like it when it's a convention or a conference that lasts a few days, and I get to sort of do different facets of what I have to offer, all for the same group of people. I really like that.
That's great. And are you finding that in this COVID time, are people still booking those types of conferences, or is that kind of being pushed off?
I'm being booked for generally one of those types of things at a time, as opposed to, that was the great economy of scale when they were flying me out to a specific conference, was to get all the use out of me they could
Yeah.
in that 3 days.
Yeah.
And so it was useful to them that I had multiple things to offer within just the same person. So they got lots of bites at the apple, as it were. Now, virtually, well, first of all, I think that the smart producers are making their virtual conferences shorter. It takes about half the time, or about half the attention span. Really, I think people struggle for an hour of a talk, or an hour and a half, which is in a live conference might not be an unrealistic keynote.
Mm-hmm.
But in a virtual setting, I think 30 to 45 minutes is really stronger.
Yeah.
People can absorb it through the screen in a more effective way.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting booked to do either that, or the MC host role, or just the entertainment at the happy hour. I haven't had a conference, but the conferences don't go in the same way, morning to afternoon or morning through evening for 3 days, in the way that they did when they were live. So
Sure.
the change in structure for online conferences has sort of changed the way I'm being booked out.
That makes sense.
But that's okay. We're all learning as we go. So
Yeah.
that's fine. It's an adventure.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us why you were interested in doing a show for charity.
Well, I've done lots of shows for charity back when we were doing in-person performing and live events. But when COVID changed all of our lives in this way, and we were locked down at home, I, I think rightfully so, not badly, all of us really started looking about, how is this going to affect me? What am I going to have to do differently? How is my family going to survive this? How are we going to have to change? And it was all very me, and I did that for a long time. And then I was going to online networking events, and all of us were kind of in that room. How are we going to sell something? How do we pitch what we do in this new world? And I remember meeting you, Sandy, and we were trying to be creative about things that we could do. And I just was convicted at one point that I'd spent the whole time, the first month of this adventure, thinking about only myself, and what am I going to have to do differently, and how is this? It was all about me, and I just thought that it was another part of my life is to figure out, well, how am I going to do something for someone else? And this environment shouldn't change that attitude, right? This environment, the fact that we're doing things virtually, shouldn't eliminate us from thinking about others and what we can do to help other people, as well as the way that it's affecting ourselves. Because frankly, all of us who are able to go on Zoom, I mean, that just implies a lot. That means we have a computer, we have a camera, we have internet, we're pretty well off to have all of those things. And so as bad as it is, if I've got the technology to get online and complain about it, I'm still doing pretty well in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
So the opportunity was in my head. It's like, okay, Joe, what are you going to do to help other people? And in talking with you, the idea that we could partner, which I would never have met you without COVID, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Atlanta,
No,
and that's what. So this, I just feel like that sometimes things are directed providentially, and the opportunity came. And so I was looking for an opportunity to do something and use my talents and try to help other people. And you came along with the idea of this particular charity, and it was a good thing. It came into my on my radar at the right time, and we had a good opportunity to plan it, and it fit the calendars out the way we needed it to. So yeah, it was all good. Some things are just the steps are ordered.
That's great. Okay, on October 25th, you have the opportunity to see Joe M. Turner perform live on the Livy Play Nashville Facebook page. It will be live streamed starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you're in Atlanta, that's 6:30 p.m. So please join us, tell your friends, tell everybody, and we will be asking everybody if they can. If you can't, that's fine. But we're trying to collect $1 per person. That's it, just $1. And with over 1 million people in Nashville and over 5 million people in Atlanta, if everybody gave just $1, we could do an incredible amount of good for people in third world nations who don't have clean water. They don't have anything that we have. So just if we all do a little bit together, we can do a lot of good. All right, and here's a little example of what you're going to see that night. So
Yeah.
I'm going it to you, Joe.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. This wouldn't be much of a commercial for a magic show if I didn't show you something. So I brought you something really special that I keep right inside my wallet, right behind the security system. It's not much. It's just some $1 bills. So there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 $1 bills. And that's kind of the theme of this whole thing is we're just asking people to give $1. If you can give more, that's great. We'd love for you to. But the idea is if everybody gives $1, then we have the opportunity to make those dollars stack up into something a little bit more useful. And that will allow Charity Water to help provide clean drinking water to a lot of people in a lot of developing countries, and you get to participate in that. So that's pretty magical too. Having clean drinking water is transformational to a community that doesn't have it. It changes the way that adults can work and earn money. It changes the way they spend their time. If you don't have to traipse all the way to get water from a well all day long and back, then you can work for more money. So it can change the living conditions of families. So this is a great opportunity, and I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay, so tell us what you're currently working on, any interesting projects you have coming up?
Well, I'm continuing to write and continuing to produce my monthly virtual show that I do myself as a ticketed show.
Okay.
I've been doing since April, and that was recommended in the New York Times in May. And so that's a different show. Every time I do it, I change a lot of it up. So people have seen it multiple times over the course of the spring and summer and now into the fall. So I'm working on that, and I have some other cool opportunities, some corporate events, and I have some other neat magic industry performing opportunities that are on the horizon that I can't really talk about just yet, but stay tuned. And if you like my Facebook page, then you'll find out more about that.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for this event and can't wait for it to happen. And thank you so much for being a part of it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right. And join us over on the Livy Play Nashville Facebook page. It'll be live streamed there October 25th. Like the page, follow it so you don't miss anything, and we'll see you there. All right. Thanks, Nashville.